Jacques Lamarre, we have known each other for probably over 40 years. I believe you
I
were a toddler when we met. And we are both playwrights, we are both artists, we are both men of parts. But am I wrong in thinking that this play, Circus Fire, that's about to premiere in Hartford, is a
mhm.
departure for you?
Yeah, it's a pretty huge departure. This is
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. I'm Austin Titchener, co-artistic director of the Reduced Shakespeare Company, and you're listening to this week's Reduced Shakespeare Company podcast, now in its 20th year, number 1010, Hartford's Circus Fire. A fire broke out in a packed circus tent at a matinee performance of Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus in Hartford, Connecticut on July 6, 1944. Over 150 people died in one of the worst fire disasters in history, and playwright Jacques Lamarre's epic take on this tragedy, called Circus Fire, opens this week at Hartford's TheaterWorks. Knowing Jacques as long as I have, I know this subject matter is a bit of a departure for him, so I was excited to talk to him about how and why he wanted to take this subject on.
this is the first large-scale drama. Mostly what I write are comedies and shows with men who dress up as women.
Well, this is another thing we share in that we write silly, stupid, and I'm putting all that in air quotes, comedies that, but I know that your work is grounded, even the silly stuff is grounded in seriousness. What made you want to take on this incredibly famous historical event as a subject for a play?
Well, you and I met when I was in New Hampshire, and I truly, I want to make sure I give you the props you deserve or the blame. You launched my career as a playwright when you were the associate artistic director at the American Stage Festival, but also the head of the Young Company. So the first two plays that I ever wrote were children's plays. But I moved to Hartford probably about 35 years ago, 36 years ago this year. Um, Give or take a year and a half spent over in the seminary. And you know the history of the circus fire here in Hartford looms large in some ways, and it's also a bit hidden in some ways. And I had heard about it, but it wasn't until about 2014, which would have been the 70th anniversary of the circus fire. And at the time, I was working at the Mark Twain House and Museum, and I was putting together public programs, a lot of programs naturally for the Twain House with authors. With it being the 70th anniversary of the Hartford Circus Fire, which happened on July 6th, 1944, I decided to put together a program featuring two authors who had written books about the circus fire. And one of them being Stuart Onan, who is a quite well-known fiction writer, but also has written nonfiction. He's co-written a book with Stephen King. His things have been turned into movies and TV shows. And he wrote what is probably the most expansive book about the circus fire. There are others that are very focused on certain aspects of it. And then Mike Skidgel has written a book called The Hartford Circus Fire, and he manages the Circus Fire 1944.com website and the Circus Fire Facebook page, and is an incredible resource. And so we had those two guys come in, and we announced that this talk was going to happen. And I did not know that we were going to get much of a turnout because it was a holiday weekend. And so I was, prepared for some interest, but I was blown away by the response. It was literally standing room only, and there were many people there that day who were at the fire 70 years earlier. And that is because it was the circus. It was the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, and they were children, and so they were maybe five or so, so they're in their 70s, 80s at this point, and so their story. I mean, the discussion was great, and I learned so much about the Circus Fire, and I bought their books and read them. But it was really the survivors telling their stories that made me realize this is not distant history, even though it was 70 years ago, and that there were people who were afraid to be in a packed space just for the talk, and wanted to sit on an aisle and make sure they knew where the fire exits were.
Yeah.
And people that I knew in the audience before this, I didn't know they were at the fire. So the following year went to visit the memorial for the anniversary. Every year they have a commemoration on the site. And I put together another author program for the Twain House, and it filled up again with different authors. Because there have been a number of books, not just nonfiction, but a novel. There have been 2 other plays that touch on the Circus Fire. There are children's books. And it's been a little while since something kind of major has come along, but it sort of felt like it was time for me to tackle this story. And so I approached the artistic director of TheaterWorks about the idea. Actually, I approached him over 10 years ago, and we talked about it and then tabled it. And then a little less than 2 years ago, it sort of came back up to the surface, and I reapproached him, and we decided to do it in conjunction with the theater's 40th anniversary.
That's incredible. I love how a subject just takes a hold of one,
Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly gripped an audience too. As when we write about Shakespeare, when we either write scholarly articles or funny, silly comedies, we're always trying to figure out, well, what hasn't been said? How do you feel like your play is filling a niche in the work that's out there about the fire?
Well, the 2 previous plays that have been written about the Circus Fire, I've not seen either of them. One of them I have not read. The other I started to read. It was written by a friend, and I stopped because I didn't want it in my head. But I read enough to know that we had very different takes on it. And one is called Front Street by a local playwright named Annie P.A. And it was really, from what I understand, a family story that touches on the Circus Fire. Like, one of the characters was at the fire. And it's really quite a bit about, from what I gather, this neighborhood in Hartford that was very vibrant Italian-American neighborhood that got mowed down to put I-91 through Hartford. So the neighborhood doesn't exist anymore. And then the other one was called Silence on Barber Street, and it's by a playwright and theater educator named William Prunetta. And Billy and I are friends, and he developed that play with his students at Ellington High School in Connecticut, and interviewed survivors and whatnot. And so that play was produced and has been produced like on a high school level, I believe. So in terms of a big thing that's particularly focusing on the Circus Fire for a professional theater company, I think this is the first. And I really kind of tried to approach it from kind of an epic scale. It has the largest cast that TheaterWorks has ever used. I was told to write it for 8 actors. When I delivered it, they said it's going to need to be 10. We did a reading of it. They said it needs to be 12. So now it is 12 actors. And normally a production at TheaterWorks has like 1 to 5. If they're being spendy, 6. And so this is, easily double what they would, more than double what they would normally do. And also, they knew, because it was their 40th anniversary, they wanted to do something that was connected to the community, and they wanted to do it I'm not sure if the right term is site specific. The play wasn't written to be done in this particular space, but it's not being done in their theater. And they
Right. I
have,
was trying to come up with that term too. It's environmental. You found a location and created a performance space within this location.
yeah, and it's very cool because it's a historic building in downtown Hartford, a 19th century hall that is owned by the first company governor's foot guard. And they were the private, originally back to the colonial era, the private militia of like the Secret Service of the Connecticut governor. Now they're more like a Rotary Club kind of thing. But they have this gorgeous hall, and we have brought in 5 banks of bleachers, and they are arranged around a center ring, so it's going to feel like a circus. And the director, I saw his production of Sandra at TheaterWorks, and I was so blown away. And that's what immediately brought back, like, this is how we could do Circus Fire with this dude. And his name is Jared Mazzacci. As you know, I'm from Amherst, New Hampshire, and grew up in Amherst, went to school and worked at the American Stage Festival in Milford, New Hampshire. He is from Hollis, New Hampshire, and grew up in that area. He worked at the Milford Drive-In, if you ever went.
Sure. Right next door in
Right next
Hollis.
door. Yeah, and he ran Andy's Summer Playhouse in Wilton, New Hampshire. And so I just felt this immediate vibe with him. He's substantially younger than us, but
Jerk.
yeah, he's a genius with multimedia and projections and incorporating all of it in with like incredible sensitivity into the storytelling. And I've seen 5 of his productions now, and so we're going to be in this very historic hall recreating the feel of a circus, which is an ancient form of entertainment, and being surrounded by not only 12 actors who will be all over the place, but also these projections and really cool sound stuff. And so it's so next level for me as a writer, and I try to approach the storytelling of Circus Fire. And I probably should talk a little bit about the historical event for people who aren't familiar with it. But I left so much space for him to play, and so I wasn't saying like at this moment this projection appears, or at this moment this is happening here or there. And so he's doing his thing, but it's not like layered on top.
Right.
It's really going to feel, hopefully, like it was always meant to be this way.
Hey, it's Peter Sagal, the host of NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. Don't worry, you haven't accidentally turned on my show. You are listening to the Reduced Shakespeare Company podcast.
Where can you RSC the RSC? Well, I'm getting better at posting the videos of this podcast online, so you can see some of these episodes over on our YouTube channel. And Adam Long's newly reimagined production of the complete works of William Shakespeare Abridged continues across the UK, with performances in Southampton, Poole, Hartford, Bedford, Tunbridge Wells, Newbury, Taunton, Exeter, Northampton, Bolton, Watford, Oxford, Ipswich, Bury St Edmunds, Keswick, Newcastle, Doncaster, Wakefield, and York. Check out the touring page at our website, reducedshakespeare.com, or our social media pages for venue and ticket information. Now back to my conversation with playwright Jacques Lamarre, talking about his new play, Circus Fire, and how he and his collaborators are wrangling Shakespearean levels of fact and imagination into their world premiere production at TheaterWorks in Hartford, Connecticut.
Well, we started out with myself, Jared, and Rob Ruggiero, who's the artistic director, as a team of co-conceivers, and setting the ground rules of like the size of the cast, and that we wanted to be in a non-traditional setting, and but we also came up with, to borrow a circus term, some tent pole things that we wanted to, themes that we wanted to kind of bring out in the play. Themes about the need to find the blame of who is to blame for the fire, and what in our humanity tells us when something bad happens to immediately figure out who's responsible. And another big thing is remembrance. As I mentioned, it's very present in the city of Hartford, the circus fire, because it was so hugely impactful. But at the same time, the memorial is in a neighborhood. It was constructed behind a school. There is no sign on the street that it will tell you it's there. You have to literally go looking for it. There's nothing, downtown. There's no big memorial to it downtown. And so, we also knew that we wanted to talk about community. And this is a play about Hartford's community, but it's also about the circus community. And because it forever changed not just the city of Hartford, but the circus, as well as fire safety across the country, particularly when it comes to temporary structures. If I just quick segue to the history of it, and I'll make it as quick as possible. Again, July 6, 1944, the circus was in Hartford. They had arrived the day before from Providence, but they were late. And apparently in circus lore, it's bad luck to blow a show, and they missed the matinee on the 5th. And so the next day, the matinee 2:00 show, which was highly attended by women and children. The men were at work because it was a Thursday, by and large, not entirely, but it was also during World War II. So a lot of heads of households were either fighting or working. And about 20 minutes into the show, the Flying Wallendas were doing their high wire act, and a fire broke out on a side wall of the tent. And it was apparently, at first, kind of like a circle of light, and it sort of got a little bit bigger, and then it started to move up the wall. And when it hit the roof of the tent, it took off like crazy, because the circus would waterproof their tents, not fireproof them. And the waterproofing was a compound of paraffin and gasoline. So there were anywhere in the neighborhood, the counts are inexact, but there were anywhere from about 7,000 to 8,500 people under the tent at the time. And the tent was completely consumed start to finish in less than 10 minutes. And it collapsed. It's miraculous that the thousands of people were able to get out before the tent collapsed. But and there's some vagary and disagreement over how many people exactly died. It was the figure is either 167 or 168, and some of those people died because of the heat being so extraordinary. There were a number of people who died jammed up against a animal chute that was used to get the lions and pumas and whatnot out of the animal cages, and they blocked 2 exits. And a number of people were trampled. So there were hundreds of people who were injured. 167 or 68 died. But as you can tell from the thousands of people that were under the tent, the number of survivors was enormous. And those people, had their own scars, even if they weren't injured, in terms of, remembering this. And Charles Nelson Riley was one of them. He was from Hartford and was a kid and was at the circus that day. And I encourage people to go to YouTube after they've watched this in full, liked, followed, and subscribed.
Yes.
And put in Charles Nelson Riley Circus Fire story, because he talks about it in his own one-person show. And it's funny because it's Charles Nelson Riley, but it also gives you some sense of the devastation. And also, I can't remember if you were at the stage festival at the time, but Jan Miner of Madge the Palmolive Lady fame was there that
Sure.
day too. Although
Wow.
she left before the fire started.
She was in Peg of My Heart at ASF, yes.
Yes, she was.
And she brought baked goods to all the interns every day.
And chocolate bottles of Palmolive, if you recall. I will never forget that.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're soaking in it. Does your and knowing, I mean, knowing you as well as I
Yes.
do, and knowing your work, and our shared love of Charles Nelson Riley, it makes me hope that you have found some moments of lightness and comedy in this story, or is there just no room for that in this tragedy?
I want to say I couldn't help myself, but I feel like it needs it too. And the thing is, when you consider the juxtaposition of what the circus means, it's
Yeah.
joy.
Yeah.
It is something that they were so looking forward to, and there was joy on the behalf of the performers as well. And there are some moments, even late in the play after the fire, and it's not told in an entirely linear structure time-wise. We're bouncing around in time, but after the fire happens in the play, it becomes fairly linear. And there was a couple who the husband got a phone call because the city used the state armory as a morgue to have people come in and identify people who died. Some of who were burned beyond recognition. It had to be identified by like dental work and scars and jewelry and whatnot. But this one man got a phone call saying, we need you to come down and identify your wife. She's, we have her purse. And he's like, well, she's right here. And they're like, well, we still need you to come identify her. He's like, but she's alive. And another person, their name appeared on the roll call of the dead in the newspaper, which of course set off phone calls and whatnot. So I have a little fun with that. But I mean, there are moments of humor in it, but that is something that I couldn't indulge, particularly in this community. There are people in this community who are very upset about the play. And
upset that a play is being written about it and produced about it at all.
Yeah, like they're fine with documentaries and nonfiction, but there's a Circus Fire Facebook page that has over 2,000 followers, most of whom are in the region, and people just assume that I'm trying to make money off this. And as you and I both know, playwriting is not where you make your money.
No, it's podcasting.
Podcasting, yes. Please support your sponsors. But it's been something that I was incredibly moved by, and I'm going to make some money off of it. But and I have to say, by and large, the response has been beyond enthusiastic. The show is already into its second announced extension. And it doesn't open until April 16th. Apologies if this is airing after April 16th. But it's running through May 31st now, and it's probably poised to be one of the most successful shows in the theater's history, and no one's seen a minute of it. There have been no reviews, no word of mouth. And although I am well known in this community, I am not deluding myself that it's selling off my name. It is because the interest in the Circus Fire will not go away in this community. And that's good. And my hope is that people who come see it will want to go visit the memorial, that they will want to seek out this history because, the survivors who came to that talk that I put together for the 70th anniversary are now 10 years older. They're in their 80s and 90s. And, we're going to unfortunately lose them. And family lore is still there. And I can't go through a day in this town without someone saying that they're excited about the play and that their mother was there, or that they lost an uncle there, or, like, it's still part of the fabric of this community.
Well, and I asked earlier about what niche is this play filling. It's telling the story as a theatrical event with a bunch of strangers in a room working with the performers, telling this really, really important story. And that's the reason to be doing this play, is to be commemorating this event, celebrating the survivors and the ones we lost together.
Yeah, and doing it, I am hopeful, in a way that will seem respectful, but also completely blow away people's expectations. Especially when it comes to the visual storytelling that's going to be happening. I mean, the play in and of itself is not only unusual for me, but in some ways it's very inspired by Laramie Project, Tectonic Theater. In terms of, kind of that community storytelling, that they did all theirs based on interviews, and they are present. The Tectonic people are present as characters in the play too, with interviewing the subjects and whatnot. But there's a lot in this play that is drawn verbatim from court transcripts, from period news sources, speeches, and so weaving that in with my imagination, and then also threading in all this visual storytelling. And the actors are, they're insanely good, and they're all drawn from the community. They're all, mostly, the professional theaters in Connecticut use actors from New York. And every single one of these actors is either an actor who's professionally based in Connecticut, or came back to Connecticut specifically to do the show because they have roots here. And so I think the fact that it's that adds to it. And it's like they're going off and doing their research, and they're coming back and saying to me, "Oh, you got this wrong in the script," which I think is so great.
Great. Calling you.
They wanted to learn more.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's a communal. It's a communally created. There's 3 conceivers, and now you've got these 12 actors doing all their research too. And I'm sure you will get responses from the audience in previews that will tell you a lot as well. I mean, these things don't happen just with one person. It takes a village to create a piece of theater. That's it for this week's Reduced Shakespeare Company podcast, except for one more thing, which I'll share with you in about 60 seconds, so stick around. Jacques Lamarre's new play, Circus Fire, opens this Thursday night at TheaterWorks in Hartford, Connecticut, and has already been extended twice. Go to twhartford.org for more information. Be sure to give us a thumbs up below and subscribe via the Groucho Wheel button. Then, send us your disasters via email to feedback@reducedshakespeare.com, or throw comments to us over on the socials where you can interact with other fans, or on our own actual website, reducedshakespeare.com, or visit my website, theshakespeareans.com. You can also find me over on Substack under my name, or The Shakespeareans. Thanks as always to Clown College graduate and former clown with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, Matthew Croak. Web services by Ginger Power Limited, music by John Weber and GarageBand. Our random fan shout out this week goes to RJ Jackson. No reason, it's just random. Let me remind you that for a limited time, Arden Publishers are giving RSC fans a 35% discount off the hardcover edition of Ronan Hatfield's book, Shakespeare in the Theater, Reduced Shakespeare Company. Go to bloomsbury.com and type in promo code RSC when you check out. Special thanks to Peter Sagal, host of NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And as always, thanks very much to you for listening. I'm Austin Titchener, 1010 3030ths of the Reduced Shakespeare Company.
The true test will be when my mother comes to see it. But not having any idea about the Circus Fire or nonlinear theater or theater in the round or projections or what have you. So I'm going into this thinking that the play likely won't have a life beyond Hartford because it's such a Connecticut story. And I'm at peace with that. You know, I feel like I've done it for this community. And, you know, if it gets, you know, a life beyond the city, great.
It could have a life outside because it's that, and this event is famous throughout the country.
Yeah.
God knows we've played in Connecticut before, the Reduced Shakespeare Company, and every theater.
Another tragedy
that we can talk about. Our performances, and the fire restriction laws are changed across the country. They're even stricter in Connecticut. But of course, my partner Reed Martin is a former Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus clown, and so that
wild.
It's legendary amongst the clowns, certainly.
Well, the word is that when they have come to town in the past, that performers will go to the site of the fire, and unbelievably and somewhat, I don't know if it's kismet or what might be the opposite of kismet, but they will be in town for the first time in years when we are opening.
Right. Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah. They're going to be at the Civic Center. We'll be sharing a parking lot.
This podcast is a production of the Reduced Shakespeare Company, reducing expectations since 1981. Go to reducedshakespeare.com for performance dates, actor bios, email newsletters, and so much less.